Hey guys, if you can hear me, please just let me know. Write a little comment on the side. Thank you, Darren. Welcome. A little glitches here. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so I think everybody can see us now, right? Okay, so let's get to it. First off, welcome to the webinar, everyone. I'm very excited to be doing this and sharing what I think is a really, really important message today. I do have to say, though, before we begin, that while security and keeping people safe is my profession and that I have taught quite a lot before, this is my first time doing something like this online, as you guys have just seen. So please bear with me if there are any hiccups or curveballs that come my way, okay? The game plan for today will be to help you guys discover what I feel are the most important aspects of keeping one safe. It'll take about 45 minutes and will be followed up by a 15-minute open Q&A where you can ask whatever you want. I'll also be sharing something with you guys at the end just in case you want to learn a little bit more. Okay, so let's get to it. Today's workshop will be covering how to keep yourself and your family safe without knowing how to fight off attackers. Okay. Now, I'm guessing some of you might have a bit of an anti towards the self-defense industry. You have seen outlandish self-defense techniques that seem more like something from the Three Stooges than actual combat. Or perhaps you've stumbled onto one of the many self-acclaimed gurus whose techniques don't make any sense. First off, I want to clearly establish that that's perfectly valid, and it's actually a good sign that you have your suspicions in regard to this. There's a lot of false information out there, and it's a shame because it creates a fog around what actually works. And the fact of the matter is that the world has some very dark places and people, and it does seem to only be getting more and more volatile. I'm sure you all agree. So if you've thought this in the past, that self-defense just isn't for you, that's perfectly valid. Today, you'll be learning something that's very, very different. You'll learn things that can be truly of high impact on your safety. You'll learn how to sidestep danger by avoiding it, blocking it, or at least deterring it. The system you'll now see aims to never have you need to try to fight someone off at all. Okay, there's this thing called risk mitigation. Like hardly anybody ever talks about it in regard to self-defense, but it can truly make all of the difference. So who is this seminar for? Whether you have experience in martial arts, you carry a concealed weapon, or are simply a parent or individual who's concerned about keeping themselves and their loved ones safe, you'll have a lot to gain here. We'll show what goes into building easy-to-implement systems to keep danger at a safe and comfortable place. People who've never done any kind of self-defense will gain an understanding of what should be their primary focus. And those who are more experienced will gain a much broader and deeper understanding of the importance of self-defense and personal protection, what they actually mean, and their true implications. Who is this not for? Basically, as long as you're open to using your brain as your primary tool against danger, this is the place for you. If you're some adrenaline junkie, or sorry to say this, but a bit of a goon who's actually looking to get into confrontations and putting himself at risk, you're not going to find these next 40 minutes very interesting. There won't be any cool, over-the-top, Instagram-worthy disarms or anything of the sort. Now, real quick, I do want to give a little disclaimer. So by watching this next 45-minute webinar, you're not going to become Jason Bourne or James Bond and be able to overcome every possible threat that may come your way. Okay, that's just the reality of things. However, you will be able to make yourself and your loved ones exponentially safer if you tune in and you take in these principles that I'll share. Okay? So our goals from this webinar today will be to understand that the only 100% guaranteed way to come out of an attack unharmed is by avoiding it altogether. And we also want to understand that avoiding an attack is actually a very feasible goal. It's very doable using the right system and approach. Okay, so let me tell you guys a little bit about me. Let me introduce myself real quick. So I served for 3 years in an elite special forces unit in the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF. I then went into the Shin Bet, which is our version of the FBI, where I was the youngest air marshal ever accepted into the program's history. I worked as both an air marshal and as an undercover operations officer at various embassies and locations around the world. I then veered off for a while and went around the world competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and also teaching Krav Maga seminars and workshops. I now have gone back and I work in the private sector where I'm in charge of security for some extremely high net worth individuals. As far as security goes, I have over a decade in the field in both government projects and 11-figure projects in the private sector. And yet with all that said, I was almost kidnapped at one point. So while this picture is pretty crazy, I was honestly not too far from this outcome. I was able to narrowly evade an outcome similar to this picture when I was stationed in Mumbai, India. Now, let me explain. When I was 23, I had moved to Mumbai for work as an assignment as my second post as an operations officer. The operations officer I came to replace there had stayed there too long and was far too lax with his cover. Knowing this, I simply approached each situation I ran into with caution and adhered to the methods that were taught to us in the federal service in regards to preventative behavior, which is kind of like stranger danger, but on an entirely different level. So moving forward, after a couple months there at the gym I worked out in, a guy started talking to me. We were both the only ones to ever use the kickboxing area, and we started to meet up to train regularly. I never let it spill beyond that though, never accepting offers for a ride home or going over to his friend's house to train and so on. I always led the way and would decide when we would go training, choosing sporadic times as best to avoid any kind of routine. I would always arrive there in a random taxi from a random location so that no one could later ask the taxi driver who dropped me off where I lived. I also took a random taxi back home from a different location as, again, to avoid any kind of routine that could possibly be exploited. I made sure to have my bases covered, and I consciously put these protective measures in place just as we were instructed to do in the service. Then one night during a big soccer game, it was the World Cup, he called me and he said that he and a buddy of his were watching the game at his house and their cable went down. He asked if they could please come to watch the game over at my place. Now, it was a weird request because I didn't really know him well, so I simply advised him to go to one of the sports bars in the area. This led to him asking again for me to reconsider and saying that they don't have anything to do and they're really desperate to watch the game, and I kept saying no and no several times before he finally said that they were right next to my house anyway. Now, this is where alarms went off in my head. There's absolutely no chance I had ever told him where I lived because it strongly opposed the preventative behavior guidelines we were taught. So I'm sure by this point, you can all understand something was off, right? Nobody should know where you live if you've never told him, let alone never told anyone where your apartment is. I immediately told my flatmate, who was another operations officer, and we then called our boss to report it. Long story short, the IBI, the Indian Bureau of Investigation, confirmed to me and to my country's embassy this was indeed an Al-Qaeda cell that was planning to kidnap me. Needless to say, I left India fairly shortly after, but with my life. When I was sent back home, I had time to look back and reflect on what happened. The most interesting takeaway that I had from this whole experience in Mumbai was that I didn't do anything physical to keep myself safe. All those macho skills that I developed that gave me this sense of confidence and perhaps a naive, youthful invincibility weren't worth as much as I thought they were. I had to come to the real honest realization that if I would have let these people into my apartment, regardless of what tools and skills I possessed, the element of surprise they had on their side would have been the end of me. I had only stayed safe and alive because I was able to avoid that danger. In all of my training in the military and federal service, I spent probably 99% of my time honing my fighting skills, be it armed or unarmed. And I became highly competent in those skills, yet honestly, if things would have gone that far, they wouldn't have helped me much. Instead, it was the small amount of classroom lessons that we went through in the federal service where we were taught to create boundaries and protective measures around ourselves that ended up saving my life. So before my next post, I had to figure out how I could continue to do this job without living in complete and utter paranoia. My whole perception of how vulnerable I was had completely changed. I figured I had to take those classroom lessons about avoiding danger and apply them in a much deeper and more sophisticated manner. And that was the point where I came up with a set of guidelines for myself based around the idea that the only guaranteed way of coming out of an attack unharmed is by avoiding it altogether. And it's also how I approach things with my clients nowadays. So now at this point, you guys are all probably thinking, well, that's an interesting story, but how does it apply to you? You don't have to worry about Al-Qaeda, right? Well, here's how it applies to you. People traditionally think about self-defense. They think about an attack and once it already begins and what you must be able to do. They think that once an attack begins, you must be able to switch on and go beast mode and overcome the attacker through various tactics, techniques, and aggression. Here's why that's a problematic viewpoint of how to keep yourself and your family safe. You're basically a reactive victim. You have no control over if the situation happens or not. You can only react once it does and hope for a positive outcome. I shared my example to show how the only way for me to escape that grave danger was by avoiding the actual confrontation itself. That's the mindset that you must have if you want to ensure your safety. If you can recognize that the only guaranteed way to come out of an attack unharmed is by avoiding it, you'll be a step ahead of the game, literally. Using risk mitigation tactics through proactive self-defense, like I used, allows you to achieve a sense of control over your life and avoid danger. Again, there's that saying from the service that the only guaranteed way to come out of an attack unharmed is by avoiding it altogether. Isn't that something you prefer? To not have to go through an attack and bravely fight out of it? To be able to have your spouse and kids avoid all the trauma that is bound to register from just experiencing a mugging, mass shooting, or even a potential kidnapping? I mean, even if you manage to save the day and everyone gets out alive, sadly, there will still be trauma. And I'm saying this from personal experience, and this is also why I'm so adamant about sharing this. This is what we're going to be talking about for the next 35 minutes in order to avoid all that. I want to share with you the 3 awesome professional secrets. Secret number 1, keeping danger at bay. How to keep yourself and your loved ones safe by avoiding danger. So after I stopped working for the federal service, I traveled a lot for martial arts competitions, and amongst other things, during these trips, I taught various Krav Maga or self-defense seminars. I was asked to teach and was always happy to do so. People always responded really well to the seminars and appreciated what they had learned. I received raving testimonials from them, but something just felt off despite all this. I had a feeling in my gut that people weren't getting what they truly needed. While knowing how to fight back is a valuable tool, I didn't think that in a 2-hour seminar I could really make a big of enough impact as I wanted to. I wasn't able to fully serve people and actually give someone concrete abilities to masterfully defend himself against a knife attack or empower a 120-pound or 55-kilo woman to the point where she could have a decent chance against a large and aggressive male attacker. While people appreciated what they learned, I just didn't feel at peace with it. People needed more, and it really bugged me. And it's honestly why I haven't taught one of these seminars in quite a while now. So when I came back to the private security sector, I was the chief of security of a big seagoing and close protection, aka bodyguarding project. I had a team of very, very capable Navy SEALs underneath me who, while being amazing fighters and amazing people, were brand new as far as the security world. Again, fighting and security are completely different things, and that's something we must understand. So going back to the story, one of my tasks was to train them up to a point where they could secure our clients. There was no point of teaching them physical self-defense as they were highly capable in that department. Again, they were fighters. So I solely worked on hardwiring them to focus on avoiding danger and take pride in never even having to take action in order to ensure our client's safety and well-being. It was all about giving them a new toolbox to work with. And that's kind of when it all clicked, and this is how it's again related to you and your safety. People shouldn't be simply taught how to fight back, which is what's happening right now. The basis of self-defense must be in enabling people to avoid danger. It's amazing how much higher impact this skill set of being able to avoid danger has on someone's safety. The really cool part is also how fast it can actually be learned, effectively applied, and impact our well-being when compared to physical self-defense. From such a relatively small time investment in learning how to avoid attacks as opposed to learning how to fight off attackers, one's ability to stay safe would be exponentially greater. There's just such a higher impact with that. It's kind of like that whole 80-20 rule, but it's 97-3. It's so fast and easy to learn, and yet has the biggest impact of everything. Now, some of you may still be skeptical and feel that you don't need this extra stuff because you already know how to defend yourself. Well, yes, if you have a gun or a black belt, when a worst case scenario arises, you can react to it and possibly have some success. But again, you're reacting. Your skills or tools may help you out once you've been compromised, but that's not a spot you want to even be in, right? To put it in a very simple way, which we can all agree on, would you be comforted knowing that your spouse has an amazing shooting background when they get caught in a gunfight? Or would you rather have them simply avoid that risk of the gunfight, regardless of how capable they may be? It's the second one, isn't it? There's always a risk that something could go wrong and they'll get hurt. Now, this makes a lot of sense when we take our own personal egos and thinking about how capable we are out of this whole equation. So with that in mind, we must ask if we aren't better served learning how to avoid danger. Solely relying on a gun or physical self-defense as a means of staying unharmed is kind of like driving on an icy road and solely relying on your amazing driving skills to get you and your family safely out of that dangerous skid. Wouldn't it be better to put on some snow tires or chains or drive with a little more caution and simply avoid that skid rather than having to fall back on your amazing driving skills and hope you won't crash? I just want to make it clear that I love martial arts as well. I'm not knocking it in any which way, and it does have its place. It's just that we have to put things in proper proportions to how effective they really are. For example, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, every white belt at some point asks his coach, how do I escape once I get caught in a certain submission? To which his coach always replies, you don't want to get caught in it to begin with. You should be asking how to avoid that submission. Well, that's kind of like what's going on here. In regards to self-defense, this is what it's all about. It lets you avoid those dangerous skids or submissions. I also see that Darren wrote, most weapon defense, you don't even see the weapon before the attack. Avoidance is better. I totally agree with you, Darren. That's a very good point. So now I think we can all agree that the only 100% guaranteed way to come out of an attack unharmed is by avoiding it altogether, right? We've all come to that conclusion and we can see that. So let's move on to the next secret. Secret number 2, why danger does not equate to high risk. How to easily discover where you're actually at high risk. So when I first doing one-on-ones with people and talking to them about having a risk-averse mindset in regard to their safety, the main issue and biggest disparity I saw keep coming up was the improper assessment of where and when they were in high risk and when they were in low risk. It seemed like the whole concept of risk was foreign to most, and no one really understood how danger is just a part of risk. Now, does that sound a little confusing to you as well? Well, I figured so, and that's perfectly fine. So let's dig into that a little bit. In order to truly understand if your well-being may be comprised in any situation, you must be able to properly assess when you're at high risk. Again, risk is the key word here, so follow me. You can only achieve this understanding of when you're at high risk once you understand the factors that go into creating a high-risk situation. And just like everything else in life, you won't be able to make a good decision on what you should do if you don't understand what you're actually up against. So what are the factors that comprise risk? Basically, risk is the meeting point between danger and our ability to control it. Wherever the two things meet is where the level of risk is. If the danger is greater than our ability to control, then we're in a high-risk situation. But if our control over the situation is greater than the present danger, then the situation is of low risk because we can control a danger and negate it. Does that make sense? Once we're able to understand the fundamentals of what comprise danger and the fundamental methods of control we can use, we can then quickly and constantly assess new situations and figure out how we can counter certain dangers with our methods of control. So let's look into what the components of danger are. The three main components of danger are, first, the magnitude of possible harm, meaning how much damage could an attack actually inflict upon us. The second one is the immediacy of the threat. How close are we to actually being affected by it? Is something that's going to happen in 5 seconds, should that worry us as much as something that's going to happen in 20 years from now? Also, what's the probability of it actually happening? If a keyboard warrior on the internet tells somebody that he's going to hurt them, is that as feasible of a threat as someone saying the same thing while they're right next to them on the street? So these are the three main factors of danger. Now let's look at methods of control. The four main methods of control are, and again, this is in a descending order. They're distance management. So if we can distance ourselves from a threat, we can maintain our safety. Barriers. If we can create some kind of barrier between us and whatever is threatening us, then again, we can stay safe. Third one is deterrence. So if we can deter an attacker to the point where he sees us as an invaluable target, as a dangerous target, he won't want to come near us. So that way we can avoid that attack by deterring him. And the last one, and there's a reason it's the last one, is countermeasures. We fight back. Now again, I'm not saying martial arts and guns and fighting back don't work. I'm just saying there should be a last resort. Now you might be thinking, okay, I kind of understand what you're talking about, but that sounds really complicated and a bit overwhelming. Is that about right? Well, I completely understand why you would feel that way, but here's why you shouldn't. And here's also something to think about. Any unknown task or system can seem a bit intimidating at first, and that's natural. But what is a big and unknown system when you honestly think about it? It's just a bunch of small, tangible aspects once they're broken down. And once we learn those small aspects, we feel confident moving forward and are able to put them all together. And it all looks much simpler in hindsight, right? We can all turn a big, unknown thing into an understood afterthought if we simply break it down, understand each small part, and then put it all back together. That's how the proactive self-defense system was built. It was built from a ground-up kind of method where you first build your understanding of danger and control, and then move forward to understanding risk. You build little chunks of knowledge and then continuously connect them into bigger and bigger pieces of the puzzle. The whole point of the system is to avoid overwhelm. It's built from the foundations up, and you gradually and comfortably build your understanding of how to become safe and keep your loved ones safe. Now, I only have 45 minutes here today, so I don't want to overload you guys, but these three components of danger, control, and risk are very easy to grasp if explained properly. But again, I respect your time, and I don't really want to get into that right now. So now that you guys understand the variables that go into creating a high-risk situation, it's not that complicated, right? It's pretty easy to understand. So let's move to secret number 3, risk reduction. How to reduce your exposure to risk and avoid being caught off guard. So I'm guessing that by this point, some of you may be thinking, okay, this is great, but knowing what to look for and when I'm in danger doesn't actually keep danger at a safe distance from me. You might be thinking that it's simply too much to constantly be aware of and to have to give constant attention to. Does that sound accurate? Well, here's what you can do about that. First, you need to figure out the primary dangers you may face in your normal everyday life. And seeing as humans are creatures of habit and routine, it won't actually take you as long to figure out as you may initially think. Then you take those dangers and start seeing what you can do about them. And this is where a system we call circles of defense comes into play. The point of this system is to increase our safety gap from solely being able to react to danger through physical self-defense without receiving any prior warning, to having multiple protective measures around us that give us both a strong safety gap and alert us to incoming threats. These protective measures are either the control methods we briefly mentioned earlier or our soft skills, things like situational awareness, for example. Building these circles of defense will help negate the danger or at least mitigate it to a point where it's either not immediate, of a high magnitude of harm, or is probable to happen. And if you remember, those are the components that comprise danger. Each circle will tackle at least one of these components. If we don't do this and build these circles of defense and solely rely on our hard skills, aka physical or traditional self-defense skills, then as you can see, we're cutting it really, really close. It doesn't provide error, which will happen and is necessary to have. And that's not what we want for ourselves. Now again, this is the general concept of how we must think in regards to building a safety system around ourselves. So don't worry if any of these terms or security sounding phrases sound a little weird. They're super easy to break down and understand. But for now, our goal is to simply have more than just our physical skills, aka our last resort to actually rely on. And that makes a lot of sense, right? As long as you're already starting to shift towards that understanding, you're well on your way. So you can give yourself a pat on the back because we have made progress. Now, how does this also help us avoid being caught off guard? So there's a difference between that sense of security and calm we have when we're inside our locked homes that are also behind a locked fence, as opposed to when we're out in the middle of the street and exposed, right? When we're in our home, we're relaxed and not draining ourselves by stressing out when we don't need to be. So then when we do step outside, we can easily be on high alert and on top of things since we still have all of our energy. Then once we get into another safe space, we can wind down again, and so on and so on. Understanding where we are at risk will make a giant impact on us being able to stay safe because it guarantees that we'll give our attention to what truly matters. We'll be able to be on high alert when it's actually necessary. We can't spend all of our time in a state where we're ultra alert and intense. It's simply unsustainable to be 100% switched on all of the time and is therefore simply ineffective. It's too exhausting and we risk burning out before an attack actually happens. It's kind of like physically bracing hard before shooting a powerful weapon, but doing it an hour before you actually shoot. Or contracting your muscles really hard for a couple minutes before throwing a punch. By the time you get to the shot or to throw the punch, you'll be tired, shaking, and pretty much completely ineffective. Being able to analyze risk will ensure that we can actually give our 100% when we really need to. Now, this is all without even mentioning that once you have a clear picture of where you are at risk, you can also know what behaviors or habits of yours you should perhaps rethink and consider avoiding. With all that said, since we have only 24 hours in a day and we only have 100% of our time, we should ration that time out in the smartest and most effective manner possible. In this case of self-defense, we must give the most attention to what's going to keep us safe, and that's avoiding danger. So now that we can see where it's truly wise to invest our energy in order to receive a big return, I'm guessing we can all agree on the importance of proactively structuring our personal safety. So what's the best way to go about that? Well, let me read this quote to you guys. The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods ignoring principles is sure to have trouble. Now, this is one of my favorite quotes, and it really makes a lot of sense, right? This is really what you want. Now, you can sit down with someone, have them charge you hundreds of dollars for a consultation, and then get handed a plan of action. But you would be limited to that exact roadmap you were given and wouldn't be able to improvise if you wanted to change your lifestyle up or simply veer off your normal routines. You would kind of be a slave to your routines and be trapped within that system. You'd also have a hard time to truly utilize the roadmap you were given because you wouldn't understand the guiding principles behind it. If all you're capable of doing is blindly following the plan that's given to you, once something goes awry, and something always does, you'll be completely lost because you won't know how to reassess things and to improvise. That's why these secrets that I shared with you guys today were foundational principles and not just do this or do that. Okay, so with that in mind, now that I showed you guys secret number 1, secret number 2, and secret number 3, let me ask you a question. If you followed what I showed in secret number 1 and used this approach to keep danger at bay through the proactive self-defense system, then you did what I showed you on secret number 2 and were able to easily understand where and when you are truly at risk, and then use secret number 3 on how to dramatically reduce your exposure to risk, do you think you could protect yourself and your loved ones in a much, much more efficient and productive manner? So let me ask you guys a question. How many of you guys are excited about what we just talked about? But also, how many of you are feeling a little confused or overwhelmed because we covered so much? All right, so who's kind of feeling like this right now? Okay, so guys, I know I covered a lot, and I sometimes talk really, really fast when I'm excited about stuff. And also, I use my hands, and you guys can't see that right now, so that's a problem. But I wanted to make sure you guys got the most important core concepts while we're here today. Okay, and that's why I rushed through it a little bit. But the reality is that there's a lot more stuff that we can cover and a lot more I can share with you guys and gals. So I wanted to put something special to help you guys take this to the next level. Now, before I share this with you guys, I wanted to ask if it's okay if I spend 10 minutes going over a special offer I created to help you guys implement the proactive self-defense system. Okay, guys, shoot me a quick comment on the side to let me know. Okay, cool. So I honestly don't like barging in, and that's why I want to ask you guys before I go into this, but this is what I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. And also, I haven't forgotten about the Q&A that I'll be doing at the end of this. So let's move forward. What I've put together is the Proactive Self-Defense Masterclass. It's a course that will help you implement what we talked about today very easily and very fast. While the stuff we went over today is great, it doesn't actually benefit you at all if you can't implement it. So with that said, let me show you guys what's inside of all this. All the modules go for about 20 to 40 minutes. They're all very compact with knowledge and give you what you really need without wasting any time. So let's quickly go over each of them. The Circles of Defense module expands upon the idea that we just spoke about and gives you a bunch of examples on how to implement this concept. The Risk module covers all aspects of risk, danger, and control, and breaks it down with relatable examples you'll easily understand. It also goes into how you can easily create your own personal risk assessment. The Situational Awareness and Mental modules, how to perform when it counts part, talks about how we can have optimal solutions for whatever situations may arise. And the Optimal Performance module talks about how we can actually perform and give life to the great solutions that we have prepared. It talks about how we can avoid panic, override harmful emotions, steer away from our fight, flight, or freeze response, what to do in case we can't do that, and so much more. In the How to Avoid Becoming a Victim module, you'll learn the key things that attackers look for when choosing targets and how to make yourself an imposing figure that attackers will be deterred from approaching. In the How to Spot Potential Attackers and Bombs, plus practical survival tips, you'll learn not just how to spot these dangers ahead of time, but also what you can do if you're caught in a mass shooting or bombing. And in the last module, How to Deal with Mass Attacks, Emergencies, before, during, and after, you'll learn how you can best prepare yourself and your family for these kinds of situations. You'll go over a checklist of tasks that need to be done and also learn how to actually perform them and in which order. So who is this going to work for? If you're a concealed carry holder who actually wants to protect yourself in a much deeper level, this will work for you. If you're a proactive parent who's concerned about his family's safety, again, this is also for you. Martial artists that are interested in self-defense and not just fancy moves, this is also going to work greatly for you. And people with zero self-defense background, the reason this will work for you is that it doesn't build upon anything. It doesn't build upon going to 20 self-defense classes and knowing certain moves. This is something completely new and different, and it's very easy to apply. People who are also traveling can really gain a great benefit of this because they'll be able to constantly understand their new situations. So I'm guessing some of you may still not feel 100% sure that they'll be able to actually do this or apply this. But I really want you guys to be able to succeed with this. And while the system is super easy to follow, just in case you're worried you may get stuck and you feel like this is the reason that you won't be able to implement this system, I will provide a free coaching session to the first 10 people who take action and register for this. Coaching sessions are also available to the general public for a fee, but for the first 10 people that register, I'll do it for completely free. But again, I do have time limits, so it'll only be for the first 10 guys. So this is what you're going to get. You're going to get the 7-module Proactive Self-Defense System course, which is a $997 value. When I first started teaching this, I noticed that some people encountered challenges when they needed to piece everything together into a plan of action. Again, some of these people were making the proper effort and were doing great and reading books and watching videos and going to lectures, but it somehow all got mishmashed and there was no order. The lack of structure and order would always lead to them to ask, where does this fit into? What should I learn and in which order? And how do I connect all these things together? These were all common questions. Now, to figure out all this stuff alone would take you a long time. It's taken the federal security industry decades and centuries in the field to actually figure it out. Not understanding this has caused people to be in more danger than they should have been because they didn't recognize the severity of the situations they were in. And it's also caused some people to be more stressed out than they should be because they weren't able to recognize when things were calm and they were not at risk. The course is formatted in a way where you can easily and gradually understand things so that you can build a toolkit that will keep you safe and give you peace of mind. There's a constant progression to everything here, and it's taken from all the stuff that I learned from the Federal Service with all their expertise and experience, my time in the field and everything that I've gone through, and how we teach things nowadays. Also, just to ensure that no one gets lost with this, I'm going to give you guys access to the Proactive Self-Defense Guidebook to help you guys follow along and be 100% organized. Like everything in life, we need a backup to the backup, and this is to ensure that you're able to understand, retain, and apply everything without any glitches. Again, the purpose of this is to make sure that you guys can understand, retain, and apply everything that's in the course. So here's a quick example of what you'll find in the guidebook on the How to Avoid Being a Victim module. You'll find the outlines of understanding dangerous patterns, breaks of routine, classifying random versus specific attackers, how to deter random opportunistic attackers, how to deal with specific attackers and stalkers, everyday applications, and proactive preparations. And this is where you guys get to immediately take this lesson into the real world. So what you're going to get, you're going to get the 7-module Proactive Self-Defense System course, which is a $997 value, and the Proactive Self-Defense Guidebook, which is a $297 value, and we'll go from there. So again, I really want you guys to succeed. So I've also added the Proactive Self-Defense weekly checklist. Just in case this all seems like a lot and you're worried that in some way or another you still have difficulty applying any of this, this will cover you. Whether you fear you won't be able to understand how everything fits in together, or if you're worried you can't keep up with it through the everyday complexity life tends to throw at us, or that you're not really sure how to apply these things and it seems like a big, unknown, and scary undertaking, this will help you easily apply all of this. I really want you guys to succeed and with this stuff, so that's why I put together this to help you guys keep everything organized properly. This actionable and easy to follow checklist that you can easily follow and modify whenever life changes will help you do just that. Does that sound good? I mean, honestly, a big part of consulting in this field is just making sure people are even aware of all the boxes they need to check. This tool will let you do that by yourself without needing to pay anyone. And honestly, this is a really valuable tool, guys. So what you're going to get, you're going to get the 7-module Proactive Self-Defense System course, a $997 value, the Proactive Self-Defense Guidebook, which is a $297 value, and the Proactive Self-Defense Weekly Actionable Checklist, a $197 value. And again, the most important thing you're going to get is you're actually going to get peace of mind. The big thing for me about all this stuff is that it gives you a sense of calm. You know that you've done everything you need to, you have all your bases covered, you've ticked off all the boxes, and you don't have to stress about things. You have a certain space to breathe within your circles of defense and the systems that you put in place that just allows you to achieve a kind of peace of mind even when you might face dangers, because you know that you have some kind of alert system and that you don't have to consciously and always be an ultra high alert. Alarms will go off before you're in danger. Okay, and this is the biggest thing for me, I'll be honest with you. So let me ask you guys this. If all this did was allow you to keep danger at bay from yourself and your family, would it be worth it? If it would give you the ability to pinpoint danger points in your life and avoid them, would it be worth it? And if you could have the peace of mind that you've truly done your part to keep yourself and your loved ones safe, would it be worth it? Now, I had two options with this. The first option was I could keep this information at a price point that it's currently at, where it's only available to high-ranking dignitaries or billionaires like I work with. But then I probably wouldn't be talking with you guys here right now. And I had a second option where I could lower the price point dramatically on this knowledge and scale it so it could be spread to the general public. And that's why we're talking today. So I want to ask you, what's peace of mind worth to you? How much do you spend on insurance? And when you think about this, insurance is only reactive. It's not proactive. How much anxiety do you face about your safety? Right? And it makes sense that you're going to be anxious about your safety if you don't have a game plan and are kind of in the dark about things. How much unnecessary time and focus does the news draw from you from all their sensational events? Now, again, the smaller the sense of belief and confidence that you have in yourself, that you can overcome those crazy situations, the more you're going to waste time and mental energy worrying about those horrific things in the news. It all makes sense. So again, if all this buys you peace of mind, you can see why it's a truly worthwhile investment, right? And you can also see why it's a good deal at almost $1,500 or $997 for the general public. But honestly, it's like I wouldn't have built this whole thing if it wasn't for you guys. And I appreciate you guys coming to this webinar and being proactive about all this. And you've already given me your time and listened to what I've talked about today. So I want to give you this for this special price, okay? You can get started right now for the price of $497. I want to give you guys this special price because I really do appreciate the support and all the kind words everyone has said about the stuff that I've been putting out, and that it's really been a big source of energy for me while putting all this together. So this is my way of really saying thanks and that I appreciate you guys. So you can go to the link there. As you see, you can open up another window, go to the link, www.proactiveselfdefense.com/trainings, and you can get started. Now, you have two choices. The first choice is you do nothing. You don't take this leap of faith, which is 100% risk-free, by the way. Or you have a second choice. You can be proactive, pony up this small investment in your future and your family's future. And again, it's risk-free. Now, what do I mean by when I say it's risk-free? Guys, I believe in this stuff tremendously. It saved my life. And that's why I want to give you this 30-day money-back guarantee. If you don't feel like this has given you value and you've learned how to make your life and the lives of your family members safer, or simply don't like it for any reason whatsoever, just let me know and we'll give you your money back, no questions asked. So again, if you ask me what to do, I would say get started today, watch all of the modules, use the guidebook and the checklist, and if you don't like it within an entire month, that's perfectly fine and you'll get all your money back 100%. Even if you've used it for 29 days, 23 hours, and 59 seconds, that's completely fine. You still get all your money back, okay? So the real question is this. Is this worth the gamble of a couple minutes of your time to check out? Because again, it's risk-free. I mean, even if it fulfills half of what I promised today, it could save your and your family members' lives, which is huge. So let's go again over what you're going to get. You're going to get the 7-module Proactive Self-Defense System course, a $997 value. The Proactive Self-Defense Guidebook, a $297 value. A weekly safety review tool, which is a $197 value. And the most important thing, you're going to have peace of mind, which is just completely priceless. That you know that you and your loved ones are safe. So again, for the first 10 people, I will give a one-on-one coaching session with me. We'll clarify everything. We'll build strategy. We'll make sure you have all your applications down. And you can also ask whatever you want in a private and more intimate setting. Now, I can't obviously give this to everyone as I don't have an unlimited amount of time, but for the first 10 people who are really proactive people who want to succeed, I want to be a part of that. And I'm going to show how much I appreciate that and give them a free coaching session. Okay, so now it's time to get after it and start, guys. Open a new browser window, type in this link here, and start being proactive about your protection and safety. Go to www.proactiveselfdefense.com/trainings. You'll find a screen like this where you can purchase and receive instant access to everything together. Also, your purchase goes through PayPal, which is an extremely secure gateway. So you don't have to worry about your credit card info or anything of the sort. We don't handle nor receive any of your info, so don't worry about it. Once you click here, the order form will show up. And okay, so honestly, guys, I just put this together like 2 hours ago, and I did test that it's working, but let me know if there's any problems. So what I'm saying is I really do appreciate all the support and everything from you guys, and it does mean a lot to me. So I also put in this coupon option for anyone who's on the webinar right now. simply enter friends and family. And again, don't write the word and, but use the little signal thing that appears when you hold down shift and press number 7. Enter it right here where you see this little arrow and click apply to receive the discount. From there, click that you agree and check out with PayPal and you'll be on your way. Okay, so see here, discount is applied and now you can simply click agree and you'll be on your way. Also, guys, and it might seem still a little expensive for any of you guys out there. I completely respect that. So when you buy through PayPal, you do, if you're a USA resident, then they can provide you financing options if you need that. You can also probably do that through your credit card company if you want to check. So guys, now it's time for any open Q&As you might have. If you have any questions right now, please let me know. I'm getting a message on my Facebook. What do I think if the Russian thing actually happened in London? Very unrelated, but yes, that's absolutely true. That I would be shocked if that wasn't the case and that didn't actually happen. Spy games are real and that stuff does happen, as well as the election. Everyone meddles with each other. That's kind of the way the world works. Thank you for Aaron and for Darren for participating. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know right now. And my pleasure, man. Hope you guys got value out of the info. So I'm getting a question, how do I explain this to my family without scaring them or freaking them out? Well, it's actually a very good question. And actually in the 7th module on how to do this with your family, I actually explain that. I give you guys a couple scripts and I talk about how to relate this to kids and how to make sure they're calm about it. And also how to create an environment in the family where this is something you guys can talk about and everything goes calm and then you're also ready, but you're not traumatizing them ahead of time. What do you think is the most important thing I can do today? The most important thing, honestly, it's learning how to avoid danger. It's like if one thing, just be more aware of your surroundings, where you can get yourself in trouble, and don't have that I would have, could have, should have thing happen. We've all been there where we've kind of gone into a situation, we've gone down the wrong alley, we've taken the wrong action, we didn't say what we were supposed to, and just because we had a sense of discomfort and we didn't trust our gut instincts. So don't ever lie about your gut instincts. Don't ever give them the recognition they deserve. If your gut is telling you that something is wrong, adhere to it and be aware of your surroundings. That's basically the best thing I can say. Trust your gut if something feels off and start assessing your surroundings. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up if there are no more questions. So again, you can feel free to head over to the website, get your training, get your coaching call, get all this good stuff. If you have any questions, for some reason the credit card doesn't work, the website doesn't work, you can either email us at info@proactiveselfdefense.com, or you can also shoot me a message any other way. We'll take care of you. I really appreciate you guys coming out here. I know I might have been talking a little bit fast. I'm a little bit passionate about this, but I hope you guys got everything and you understood everything. And again, thank you for coming out, for listening in, and have a good night, everyone.